So how do you guys feel about the dark type? What do you think it is representative of? I think there's a lot of things that come up that people recycle on the internet that are true, but I think there's more under the hood. What I hear a lot is that is it called the etymology? Is that the right term?
Yes.
The meaning or the translation of what dark type means in Japanese kind of translates to evil. That is what I hear all the time. Yeah, so I'll open the floor to you guys.
There is that is a way you can translate it, but it's a little more nuanced than just evil. Because, like, in the West, we hear evil, we think, like, demons, like devilish people, like, the most wicked of wicked things, villains are evil. Mm-hmm. But really, it just means, like, mean-spiritedness in the East, most Eastern languages. Like, you're rude.
Like, it's kind of a gray morality, right? Anything that it could be questionably immoral or selfish. I mean, I think immoral is a really weighted word. Immoral has a lot of implications. I think it's just selfish is a good way to think about it. It's like it's like you're doing something or you have the mentality to do something for your own personal gain, and it might be a little, roundabout. It might not be as honorable, but that's how I understand it. And I think it does get... The other part for me that it can get a little bit confusing about the dark type is that what we're describing almost sounds like a personality rather than like an elemental energy source, right? A creation of Arceus, something fueled by mega energy, right? It's like, what is dark type in that sense?
Yeah, that's interesting.
What are you guys thinking about?
It's like manifested malice.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like you see it in a lot of like the few special dark moves. There's like black and red aura clouds appearing all around them and everything.
The alpha Pokemon.
What?
Right. That's so random.
Don't they have red glowing eyes?
But what does that have to do with the dark type?
The red aura. That's what I'm thinking of.
Okay.
All alphas are dark type. You heard it here first. I mean,
say that.
I think dark type is I can remember I think this kind of sums up the dark type a little bit for me. But I remember as a kid, my dad heard me and my sister talking in the back about Pokemon, and I mentioned something about the dark type. And I remember my dad going, and at the time I thought my dad was showing interest in my video game, but he was like, tell me about the dark type. And I think that was my dad, which, kudos to him, because, like, I'm 7 years old, right? He's making sure I'm not playing something, like, crazy.
What is this dark type?
Like that, and so I was like...
Is this the devil?
Luckily, I said the right things, right? Like, I went like, oh, like, its moves like bite and crunch. Like, when you bite someone really hard. My dad's like, oh, okay, cool. Probably wouldn't have been great if I'm like, well, it's when they summon dark energy to use Dark Pulse,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Dark Pulse is a move, which is just like what is the pulse? What is the darkness?
I was gonna say it before, like we're talking about like the definition of the word basically, or of the type. So it's like so much more than just the evil type or selfishness, or we talked about Darkrai before, like it's dark type just because nightmares basically and
it's scary.
Yeah so that's like one side of it, and then the other side is like you have a bad attitude. So
that's a good point. It's fear,
very encompassing.
Isn't there, what is it, I think aren't psychic types weak to fears? Isn't that what that is? You get the bug types, ghost type, dark type. That's lining up. Let's take a look at the type effectiveness. Yeah, the communication between different types. What do we call this? Type effectiveness? Is that the right way to say it?
I think that's it. Type effectiveness.
Yeah. So dark type is super effective against the ghost type and the psychic type. I think I've always understood psychic type being weak to dark, like what we just said, where it's like fear. I don't know if there's anything else on top of that. Honestly, the ghost type is kind of weird as well.
There could be a little bit of, scary evil people are scary, But the thing that makes it more confusing is Dark being immune to Psychic.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I've always pictured it as being like someone who's truly like twisted or psychopathic on the inside of their head. Their brains and their minds function completely differently from all other people, all other Pokemon. So like the Psychic type trying to attack their mind doesn't work because like their mind is completely different. They're tricky. Yeah. And that also plays into the whole the being, is it Dark is super effective against Ghost?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Right, because ghosts tend to prey upon people's guilt. You know, think about like various ghost stories, like, oh, you're guilty of all these things, like Christmas Carol, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, but if you're that dark and selfish, you don't really feel guilt.
Yeah.
You're mean-spirited inherently.
That's
like,
interesting.
These are all good things.
That's interesting.
You're just like, this ghost I don't care. I don't care about this ghost.
That's really interesting. It's like it's like the defiance or the separation between normal consciousness, or maybe not consciousness, but normal reasoning. That could be what that is. And then we see that Dark is weak, or I guess it's not very. I think that not very effective are kind of confusing. Dark type is weak to fighting Bug and Fairy. We reviewed it in the Fairy episode a little bit. But I think we understood that if Dark type really is the evil type, I feel like Fairy in a lot of ways feels like the angel type, not light type, but the good type. So there's an obvious correlation there, an obvious relationship. The fighting type, I think, also makes sense. Fighting, I think, has been understood to be kind of like a hero type as well.
Justice.
Yeah, justice. That's a great way to say it. So again,
like you think about in the movies, you got the big hero and he's showing mercy to the guy he just beat up, and then the guy he just beat up stands up, tries to backstab the hero as he's walking away, but the hero's well trained and like rescinds the mercy and beats you up more.
Nice.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. What about the Bug type? That's kind of strange. That's a weird relationship.
Bugs are stupid. You can't trick them.
That's it. That's the only reason. There's really like, I don't know if you have anything locked in, but I have no answers for this. Like,
I was gonna say because butterflies eat demons for breakfast.
Is that a real thing? Is that
maybe? Who's to say?
Who's to say? We don't know.
I really have no idea. Bugs.
Is anyone here a butterfly? No.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll never know.
There's a little bit like Kamen Rider stuff in Japan. They're all bug heroes.
True.
So like and that's the same target demographic, you know, little Japanese children watch Kamen Rider, they watch Pokemon. We just got the Low-Key, or is it Low-Kicks?
Yeah, Low-Kicks.
Yeah, I pronounce them Low-Kicks. I don't know how it's pronounced though.
Like it's literally a Kamen Rider bug.
Yeah.
And so there's this association with bugs and heroes because of a Kamen Rider in Japan.
Okay.
That makes so much sense.
But to justify it outside of that, there's no amount. You cannot swindle a fly out of its money. You can't scam an ant farm. You can plot against them, you know, be mean and push the ant farm over, but the ants are just gonna go about their day.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, those make sense.
Both of those are great explanations. I don't know why I've never even thought about the Kamen Rider thing, because that's when you hear that, you're like, oh, that's it. Like, that's the reason.
I wonder, is the Bug type partially the Kamen Rider type?
I mean,
like, what is the percentage of bugs that
3
match?
Kamen Riders and they're all bug type?
Yeah, that's true.
Ledian, Low-Kicks, and
People say a Selgor is. I don't know how accurate that is.
Scizor?
Oh yeah,
Scizor kind of feels like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
honestly,
that's true.
The only thing I've ever
thought of was that bugs, most of them like come out at night. That's like the only connection I could ever really make.
Sure,
like a lot of bugs.
That's a good point.
Are out at
They
night.
hide under dark places.
Yeah, or something like that. So
But
they're not like.
That starts getting into the tricky, like it's not literal darkness.
Yeah. But it kind of is when it comes to like Umbreon, right?
Right, because Umbreon's one of those Pokemon that really shouldn't be dark type in the like classical definition of it, and yet it was one of the very first dark types.
Yeah. What type would you make it though?
Right?
Poison,
like
bro.
Poison would make more sense. it can't learn any poison type moves, and yet its dex entries talk about how poisonous it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in the beta of Gold and Silver. It was poison type. That's why it used to be.
Because used to it was
poison type.
Espeon. There was a grass evolution
Yeah.
coded into the game too.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, I guess it does tie.
Early ones.
I guess it does tie with nighttime and fear, right? Because if you look at Darkrai, that's another like darkness, literal darkness Pokemon.
Most shady mafia deals and like back alley beating people up and stuff happens at night also.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
True.
So there is that connection either way.
Yeah.
I once read that if someone breaks into your home during the day, they're trying to rob you. They're coming at a time where they think you're not there. But if they come at night, it's oftentimes a violent crime, like against a person, like
that makes sense.
murder.
This is
So I mean, that is
Umbreon
kind of
is
just a way to
capable of
think of
that.
it. Yeah, Umbreon is capable of murder.
I wonder how many words we're gonna have to censor in this video. I didn't really think about it.
Do we have to censor that on YouTube?
Does murder need to be censored?
One.
I mean, we're not saying we're gonna do it. We're just mentioning that it is.
I mean, Loxton has said it before in his videos.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Any advice? Do you think?
As long as the context remains like talking about true crime stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
That's a carved out exception.
Yeah.
I kind of wish Umbreon had a little bit more something else in its design other than just the moon. Because in a lot of ways, if it's just the moon, that sounds like a fairy type, truthfully.
Yeah.
I wonder, literally a fairy move.
Yeah. I wonder how many other Pokemon are like a little bit related to darkness in the dark type kind of thing. Is it just Umbreon? I'm blanking.
I mean, we'll get into it once we get into
literal
the Pokemon.
darkness.
We will get into it. You know, there's a lot of the moves as well for the dark type. Kind of
like Batty Bad.
Yeah, Batty Bad.
That's really wicked.
that move is too scary to use.
we should just like finish right now. That's it. Like Batty Bad explains the dark type perfectly.
Like bite, beat up. These are all things that are just like I guess unfair. Or
is Black Hole Eclipse an actual move?
I think it's
a Z move.
It's a Z
right?
move.
Okay, I was about to say I've never seen that before.
Ceaseless Edge, comeuppance. Are you kidding me? See, that sounds like a fighting type move. It's like you're gonna get your comeuppance.
Well, so does beat up. It's because it's like that's based in revenge, right?
Yeah.
But then the interesting thing is revenge is a fighting move.
Sure, it is. Yeah.
One's just revenge, and the other one is mean revenge.
Yeah. That's interesting. You're right, because revenge is like, you know, theoretically, I guess like morally, revenge isn't actually good to do either. I guess I'm assuming revenge is violence. Revenge really could just be like, or is revenge supposed to be violent? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be.
Embargo, that's like, I guess, see, that sounds lawful to me. An embargo sounds lawful.
Isn't that the move that prevents you from using a held item?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means like,
it's often kind of seen as like a lesser like war tactic because you know that's the thing people do in war is an embargo, where they basically make it where you can't trade goods, so nothing can come in or nothing can come out, so it can like starve a country.
Yeah,
you know,
fake tears is a great example, right? That's deception.
That's
False surrender is deception. Yeah. That little Azurill is gonna grow up to do some horrible, heinous crimes. I'm assuming Azurill can learn fake tears. Feint attack.
I can, if not close enough.
Yeah, Fiery Wrath is interesting. You're right. Moltres is going to be in this discussion. The Galarian Moltres. That'll be interesting.
Is that a special move? Like its only move? Like not only. You know what I mean? Exclusive.
I think so. Yeah.
I don't know if other Pokemon learn it other than that.
A fire-like
no
aura
other
to
Pokemon
attack.
learns it. It's just Galarian Moltres.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be
Articuno
exceptions.
got it too.
Yeah.
Actually, that brings up a good. I'm thinking about like the villains in like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, how they have that like dark aura around them, and it's all evil and flame-like, and you got the katakana symbols menacing, all flashing all around them. It's just like the Fiery Wrath aura.
It reminds me of like someone who holds a grudge, right? It's like negative energy. When you hold on to it, it really only like burns yourself, right? However, I guess in this scenario, in a fantasy monster catching game, that dark energy you can use it to hurt other people as well.
But it's like manifesting.
I mean, that's the case in the real world too. Evil people tend to hurt other people.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Foul play. I'm just gonna start reading these off. Foul play, hone claws.
You're sharpening your knives.
Yeah, kind of like cheating.
Hyperspace fury.
Jawlock. That's
Dreadnaught's move.
Yeah, I didn't know it was dark type.
Another Pokemon got it now, but I don't remember who.
Cowtoe Cleave. I don't know any of these. Knockoff.
King
Lash
Gambit's
out.
move.
Malicious Moonsault.
Lumi is our resident
competitive battler.
Competitive person, so he knows like who these moves belong to mostly.
Yeah, so it makes sense. All of these moves are really just giving the Pokemon an advantage against the opponent, which obviously in a competitive sense, like that's the whole point. You want to get you want to get some sort of advantage, but all of these things seem to be like using outside sources or doing something that might be a little immoral. There's a lot of these.
My favorite is Fling. I like the idea of a Pokemon just like holding a rocky helmet and just chucking it out, like
that was a cheap shot.
Right.
Yeah. It also, you have to take into account the Japanese as well. Like if any of them sound kind of weird, it might be just because in Japanese it makes sense, but
true.
in English.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like Night Slash in Japanese is like, it roughly translates to like crossroad killing. Isn't that right?
Sure.
And that was a big deal. Was
like,
it's got killing in the name, and so that was like a big thing. People always speculated that's why Ash's Greninja never got it, but then his Farfetch did.
Yeah, I do want to before we move on to the Pokemon, I do want to point out that the Dark type, obviously was introduced in Generation 2, kind of as a count. I want to say it was officially introduced as a counter to the Psychic type, and maybe also the Ghost type. But I also feel like Dark type and Steel type were probably conceptualized like during Generation 1 at some point, right? They just hadn't actually brought it into reality. You think it was an afterthought?
I do think it was after, just because like what we were talking about with Umbreon, even it was a poison type in the beta. So like I think maybe they threw that in a little bit later, the whole idea.
Sure.
Maybe they had the idea, the concept.
Yeah, I think it was balanced because Psychic types were really strong, Ghost types were really strong and only weak to themselves, and then Steel, you could argue the same thing because while it doesn't beat Dragon, it does resist it.
Yeah. That's a good point, because I do think if Dark type was conceptualized in Gen 1, I mean, obviously it didn't exist in Gen 1, but if the developers were thinking about it, I don't know, I feel like Mewtwo is a great candidate for a Dark type. Right, with the Berserk gene item, right, that was present in Gen 2. I feel like there's a lot of Pokemon in Gen 1 that just basically just have angry Gen 1 eyes and should have the Dark type for that reason alone, honestly. So many Pokemon are depicted as just having like a temper. Beedrill, Fearow. So, yeah, I guess that's something we should look into to see if that's actually when the Dark type was actually thought of.